Today we are discussing Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer. This is issue 1 of a mini-series, which is a spin-off of the Boom 2019 reboot. Now, I haven't really been keeping up with the 2019 reboot, so I don't know what's going on in there other than they introduced a multiverse, and apparently this is part of the multiverse. Now, when I first heard about this, I was really intrigued because the premise is something that I've always had a bit of a soft spot for, which is an older hero is forced out of retirement or hiding or whatever to face their past and come to terms with who they are. Obviously, Frank Miller did this with The Dark Knight Returns, and it became a very popular and well-known book, one of the best-known Batman books of all time. Mark Millar did it with Old Man Logan. Recently, Boom Power Rangers also did this with Soul of the Dragon, which was about an older Tommy. Now we have the story told with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or at least we have the first quarter of it. When this was announced, I was really hoping it would be the show continuity, because obviously Boom has their own continuity, and that's all fine and dandy, but with a story like this, I feel like it helps if you have a connection with that character. And I feel like this would be most effective told in the show continuity. And with a time skip like this, you could ignore the Dark Horse stuff and just say, this is years later. Unfortunately, we did not do that. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. To start, this is written by Casey Gilly and illustrated by Joe Jarrow. I apologize if I mispronounced that. I am not sure who either of these two are. I'm assuming they are Boom people who work on comics through them. For all I know, they could even be the one writing the main Buffy book. So the book starts in London with an older Buffy sneaking into a diner. And I do want to say I appreciate the use of color here. What little I have looked at with the Boom comics, I have not been a big fan of art-wise, and I don't love the art here, but it is better in some places. There's at the beginning, a lot of neon colors and pinks and stuff like that. Status quo is basically that the sun is gone, and vampires and humans have reached a treaty. Now, there's a few interesting differences between this universe and the show, which shows that this cannot be in the show continuity. We are shown a flashback which shows Xander and Cordelia in Sunnydale with Buffy in their 40s. Anyone who has watched the original show knows why that's not possible. I don't want to fully spoil the show if you haven't watched it. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. Which, it's just unfortunate. I guess we'll go ahead and get into that now. The show Buffy is the version everybody knows. I don't know how well the Boom universe is doing, but I do know in the Boom universe, Xander dies. So this can't be in that reboot continuity either. So this has to be its own universe, which makes me wonder what was the point. This is a Buffy we have no connection to. We don't know what's happened in her past. Did Becoming Part 1 and 2 happen? Did Faith happen? Did Glory happen? What has happened in this universe? Now, obviously, this is just part 1 of 4, but I can't imagine they'll be able to really delve into this Buffy's past and all that. So it makes it hard for me to know what this Buffy has been through, which would allow me personally to further sympathize with her. And I think that's going to be a big issue going with this through this book going forward, is how much do we know about this Buffy, and how much will this series be able to tell about Buffy? But that's my main complaint. But I like a lot of what this book is doing. This is very much a Buffy that is on her own. She's old and sad and bitter, like most of these stories go. It's hinted at that Giles is dead, Xander is dead. The only one that's living is Anya, and here's another weird choice. Anya is her only contact with her past life, so to speak. Her friends and all that. but she hates Anya in this continuity. She just kind of deals with her because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. It's a very strange choice. And it's really a shame because I liked Buffy and Anya's relationship in the show, where they were friends, but they had an understanding of who each other were. So back to the main issue of the story, or the main plot, is Buffy's in this bar and her nose starts to bleed, which we are discovering is something that's been happening to her lately, and the book hints that she might be immortal. Personally, I don't know how I feel about that. Um, the thing that was most interesting about Buffy is she's still human. She dies twice in the show. Making her immortal, I think, really just strips some of that away. And I'm all over the place because I feel like there's both a lot to talk about and not a lot to talk about with this book. So I'm like trying to gather thoughts and all that stuff. It's very interesting thinking about this. Um, there's this really nice scene where she's talking to Giles, but Giles isn't really there. It reminded me a lot of, something like The Dark Knight Returns, Batman talking to his parents who aren't really there anymore. Because, of course, Giles was the closest thing to a father she had as the show continued. Um, a lot of my issues with this book, I think, are going to be on a wait and see aspect. So I'm going to keep this a little bit short and mostly just say that this is off to an interesting start, but I think they've shot themselves in the foot from the get-go by not establishing this in the set continuity of the show, so we know what this Buffy has been through. It's also a shame that Buffy, the Boom universe, and the Boom writers don't seem to be interested in the Buffy and Angel relationship, as that was one of my favorite things in the early parts of the show. And I know in the Boom universe, they have like no connection whatsoever, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. What are you gonna do? But yeah, and then I guess the other big thing to note is that Buffy is the way she is because apparently this truce has made any harm come against vampires illegal. So she's kind of on her own, hiding and doing guerrilla warfare and stuff like that. Um, I'd like to see more information about how we got to this place and how what events led to this, because it seemed like a very odd status quo to me, but it also feels like it's that we're pulling from the Dark Knight Returns, which was a very much like, Batman was outlawed and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Um, and then, of course, the other big thing to mention is the big cliffhanger, which is, if you've read Old Man Logan, the ending of that turns into a lone wolf and cub thing. This looks like it's going to be a young wolf and cub thing, as she runs into this young girl who's being assaulted by a vampire, and saves her, as Buffy does. And you discover that she thinks she is a slayer. She's also the daughter of Willow and Tara, which is weird because, as far as I'm aware, Tara is not in the Boom universe. And I know we established that this is a different universe than the Boom comics. It has to be. Certain events don't light up. But why are you picking and choosing from all these different universes what happened and what didn't happen? Or if you're making this its own universe, why are you cherry picking what happened in it? And she believes she's a slayer and has come to Buffy for help. What's really odd is that's also the daughter of Willow being a slayer is also the idea behind that junior novelization that Disney has recently announced. So I'm wondering if this is going to tie into it somehow, or if they're just two separate people had the same idea. I myself am not a huge fan of the idea. It seems a little fanfic-ish, especially if she turns out to be like a witch and a slayer. But I guess we will have to see what happens. So these have been my very scattered thoughts on the first issue of Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer. I will do another video on issue 2 when it comes out. If you guys would like to see more of this, let me know down in the comments below. And hit that thumbs up and subscribe button. And if you'd like to see more videos on the Boom universe as well as the Dark Horse universe, let me know as well. I'm planning to do more solo Buffy stuff. And I appreciate you guys watching. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night.